The streets of Harlem are buzzing with an explosive revelation that no one saw coming. Cam'ron, the iconic rapper and one half of the legendary Dipset duo, has dropped a bombshell that has left fans, friends, and even family members reeling. In a shocking twist, Cam'ron has exposed a dark secret about his longtime friend and fellow rapper Jim Jones. The shocking accusation? Jim Jones allegedly had a secret affair with none other than Cam'ron's ex-girlfriend, a betrayal so deep it's hard to believe. Fans are in disbelief as the details of this scandal begin to unravel. How could someone Cam'ron considered family betray him like this? The affair wasn't just a fling, it was a full-blown relationship, and the consequences are far-reaching. Cam'ron's words have sent shockwaves through the hip-hop community, and now the truth is coming to light. But as emotions run high, the question on everyone's mind is, why did Jim Jones do it? And how will this revelation change everything we thought we knew about their friendship? Stick around, because the drama has only just begun, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The tension was building. Everyone knew something was off, but no one dared to speak about it. The streets of Harlem had long been accustomed to drama, but nothing could have prepared them for the shockwave that was about to hit. Cam'ron, the respected rapper and business mogul, had always been a figure of strength and confidence in the music industry. He had built his career on loyalty, respect, and undeniable talent. But now the loyalty he had always shown was about to be tested in the most unimaginable way. It all started on a night that seemed like any other. Cam'ron, alongside his longtime friend and fellow rapper, Jim Jones, had been dominating the hip-hop scene for years. Their partnership had become legendary, their friendship stronger than anything. But behind closed doors, things were far from perfect. As they laughed and joked in front of the cameras, there was an unspoken tension between them. Something had changed. No one could have predicted that the bond they once shared was slowly unraveling beneath the surface. The spark that set it all off came when Cam'ron received a tip, one that would send him spiraling into a whirlwind of disbelief. A friend, someone he trusted, came to him with disturbing news. It was an accusation so shocking, it seemed like a bad joke. Jim Jones, his best friend, the man he had shared everything with, was allegedly having an affair with one of Cam'ron's ex-girlfriends. The woman, whose name would send ripples through the hip-hop community, was someone Cam'ron had once loved. But to think that Jim, his brother, could betray him in such a way was unimaginable. At first, Cam'ron didn't know whether to believe it. He had heard the rumors before, whispers here and there, but he dismissed them as nothing more than petty gossip. Yet this was different. The information was too specific, too well documented to ignore. The affair had allegedly been going on for months, and what made it even more damaging was the fact that Jim had kept it a secret, not just from Cam'ron, but from the world. This wasn't some random fling. This was a relationship built on lies, deceit, and betrayal. Cam'ron was furious. He couldn't fathom how his friend, someone he had trusted implicitly, could do this to him. The betrayal stung more than he could explain. They had been through thick and thin together, from their early days in Harlem to the success they enjoy as one of the most influential rap duos in history. To have Jim secretly involved with someone from Cam'ron's past felt like the ultimate violation. As the news settled in, Cam'ron felt a mix of anger, disbelief, and pain. He couldn't just sit back and let this lie unchallenged. Something had to be done. The world needed to know the truth, and more importantly, he needed to confront Jim. But how would he even begin to process something so devastating? How would he look his longtime friend in the eye and pretend like nothing was wrong? It wasn't long before Cam'ron made the decision to take matters into his own hands. He couldn't let this betrayal slide. No amount of money, fame, or success could erase the damage that had been done to their friendship. And so, in a move that would shock the world, Cam'ron decided to expose Jim Jones for what he had done. But before he made his public reveal, he needed to confront Jim face to face. He couldn't just throw accusations into the air without hearing Jim's side, no matter how painful it might be. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the streets of Harlem grew quiet, Cam'ron made his way to Jim Jones' house. His mind was racing with 100 questions, all circling around the same theme. How could Jim do this? As he stood outside Jim's door, he felt a wave of frustration wash over him. He knew what he had to do, but part of him, the tension was building. Everyone knew something was off, but no one dared to speak about it. The streets of Harlem had long been accustomed to drama, but nothing could have prepared them for the shockwave that was about to hit. Cam'ron, the respected rapper and business mogul, had always been a figure of strength and confidence in the music industry. He had built his career on loyalty, respect, and undeniable talent. But now the loyalty he had always shown was about to be tested in the most unimaginable way. It all started on a night that seemed like any other. Cam'ron, alongside his longtime friend and fellow rapper, Jim Jones, had been dominating the hip-hop scene for years. Their partnership had become legendary, their friendship stronger than anything. But behind closed doors, things were far from perfect. As they laughed and joked in front of the cameras, there was an unspoken tension between them. Something had changed. No one could have predicted that the bond they once shared was slowly unraveling beneath the surface. The spark that set it all off came when Cam'ron received a tip, one that would send him spiraling into a whirlwind of disbelief. A friend, someone he trusted, came to him with disturbing news. It was an accusation so shocking, it seemed like a bad joke. Jim Jones, his best friend, the man he had shared everything with, was allegedly involved with someone from his past. The relationship had been kept a secret, and the consequences were far-reaching. Cam'ron felt a cold wave of disbelief wash over him. How could Jim have done this to him? At first, Cam'ron didn't know whether to believe it. He had heard the rumors before, whispers here and there, but he dismissed them as nothing more than petty gossip. Yet this was different. The information was too specific, too well documented to ignore. The alleged events had been going on for months, and Jim had kept it a secret from everyone, from Cam'ron, from their close circle, from the fans. This wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was a full-blown situation that had been hidden in plain sight. The anger began to bubble inside Cam'ron. He tried to calm down, but the more he thought about it, the harder it became. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was betrayal, pure and simple. How could Jim have kept this from him? How could a friendship that had survived so much be torn apart by one careless act? Cam'ron knew he couldn't just ignore this. He couldn't sit by while his best friend, someone he had shared so much with, did something that would change the course of their relationship forever. So he decided to confront Jim. He needed answers, and he needed them now. There was no way he could move forward without knowing the truth, even if the truth was painful. He arranged to meet Jim the following day. The moment he walked through Jim's door, the air felt different. There was a weight in the room, an unspoken understanding that things were about to change. Cam'ron didn't waste any time. He walked straight up to Jim and said, "We need to talk." Jim looked up, his face betraying his unease. "What's going on, man?" he asked, clearly sensing the tension in the air. "I know what's been going on, Jim," Cam'ron replied, his voice steady but filled with anger. "I know about everything. I know what you've been hiding." Jim's face drained of color for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure, forcing a nervous smile. "What are you talking about, Cam? There's nothing going on. I don't know what you're referring to." Cam'ron wasn't buying it. He had heard too much, seen too many signs to ignore it any longer. "Don't lie to me, Jim," he said, his voice rising. "I know what you've been doing. I know everything. You've been keeping secrets from me, and it's time you tell me the truth." Jim's eyes flickered nervously, his gaze darting around the room. But you've made it damn near impossible. All I wanted was honesty. All I ever wanted was for us to keep it real with each other. And now here we are." The room grew heavy with the weight of the conversation. The air felt thick, like it was holding its breath. The bond they had built over the years was slipping away, and Cam'ron couldn't do anything to stop it. He lashed out, but a part of him still cared about Jim. They had shared too much, been through too much. for this betrayal to feel like the final nail in the coffin. "I don't know what happens next, Jim," Cameron finally said, his voice quieter now, resigned. "But I need space. I need time to figure out if I can even look at you the same way again." Jim nodded, his face full of regret. "I get it, Cam. Take all the time you need. I'll be here if you ever want to talk. I'll always be here." But Cameron wasn't sure that was enough. There was too much hurt, too much confusion. The friendship they had built over the years was now in ruins, and no matter how much Jim apologized, the damage was done. Cameron wasn't sure if he could ever forgive Jim, not for this. As Cameron left Jim's house that night, the weight of everything that had just transpired weighed heavily on him. He knew there was no easy way out of this. The betrayal wasn't something that could be swept under the rug. The truth had been exposed, and now the world would be watching to see how it all played out. But as the night closed in and the city lights flickered in the distance, Cameron knew one thing for sure: this wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one that would be written with the pain of betrayal and the difficult journey toward healing. Whether or not Jim Jones would be a part of that chapter remained to be seen. But for now, Cameron had to focus on himself, on finding his own peace amidst the chaos that had been unleashed. The days following the confrontation with Jim Jones were a blur of anger, confusion, and isolation for Cameron. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was the betrayal, the secrecy, and the damage it did to everything they had built. The fallout had left him questioning everything he thought he knew about his friendship with Jim. How could it all unravel so quickly? How had they gone from brothers to strangers in the span of a few moments? The confusion weighed heavily on him, and no matter how hard he tried to shake it off, the sting of betrayal lingered. Cameron had always been known for his strength, his unwavering confidence, and his ability to keep a cool head in the face of adversity. But this was different. This wasn't just a business disagreement or a minor fallout. This was personal. Jim had crossed a line that Cameron wasn't sure could be repaired. And the worst part, it wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the lies, the manipulation, and the fact that Jim had kept this secret for so long. Cameron spent the next few days in silence, trying to come to terms with what had happened. His phone was flooded with messages from friends, fans, and colleagues, all wanting to know what was going on. But he couldn't bring himself to speak about it, not yet. The public didn't know the full story, only the parts Jim had exposed. But Cameron wasn't ready to share his pain with the world, not until he understood it himself. It wasn't until a few days later that he finally decided to confront Jim again. The air was thick with unresolved tension, but Cameron knew there was no turning back. He couldn't let this fester any longer. The only way to move forward, if that was even possible, was to have one final conversation with Jim. He didn't know what would come of it, but he knew that they both deserved closure. He called Jim, his fingers hovering over the screen before he pressed the dial button. There was no turning back now. Jim answered on the first ring. "Cam," his voice sounded strained, like he'd been waiting for this call. "We need to talk," Cameron said, his voice steady but filled with tension. "I'm coming over." Jim didn't protest. There was no excuse he could offer to delay the inevitable. "All right, I'll be here," he said quietly. Cameron hung up the phone and took a deep breath. He had no idea what he was walking into, but he couldn't keep running from this. He grabbed his jacket and made his way to Jim's house. The drive felt longer than it actually was, the weight of his thoughts pulling him deeper into his own head. Every second felt like an eternity, and he wasn't sure what kind of reception he'd get from Jim. Was he ready to face the consequences of his actions? Would he come clean and finally take responsibility for what had happened? Or would he continue to hide behind excuses and half-truths? When Cameron arrived, Jim was waiting for him at the door, his expression a mix of guilt and resignation. The last time they had spoken, it had been an explosive confrontation, but now there was something different in Jim's eyes, a quiet understanding that this was the end of the line for their friendship, no matter how the conversation went. Cameron walked in without a word, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of change. But everything looked the same familiar setting, the same things that once felt comforting. Now it all felt hollow. They sat down across from each other, the tension hanging heavy in the air. Cameron was the first to speak. "I can't keep doing this, Jim," he said, his voice low but firm. "This isn't about the affair anymore. It's about the lies. The fact that you've been hiding this from me, from everyone. You said we were family, but this isn't how family acts." Jim looked down, his fingers tapping nervously on the table. "I know, man. I know. And I'm sorry. I don't know how to explain it, but it's not as simple as it seems. I never meant for it to turn out this way." "But it did," Cameron interjected, his voice growing sharper. "And that's the problem. I can't just overlook what happened. I've been loyal to you, Jim, but now I don't know where we stand. I don't even know who you are anymore." Jim opened his mouth to respond but faltered, unsure of what to say. "I never wanted to hurt you, Cam. I've been thinking about this for days, and all I can think is that I'm a damn fool. I messed up, and I'm sorry. But it's not just about the affair. It's about the trust. I should have come clean to you from the start." Cameron's eyes narrowed. "Yeah, you should have, but you didn't. And that's why I'm having trouble even looking at you the same way." There was another long silence between them. Both of them knew there were no easy answers, no simple solutions. The damage was done, and no amount of apologies could erase the past. "I know I can't change what happened," Jim said quietly, "but I hope one day you'll be able to forgive me. Not for your sake, but for mine. I've lost enough. I don't want to lose you too." Cameron let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "It's not about forgiveness, Jim. It's about trust. You've broken that, and once that's gone, it's hard to get back. I don't know if I can trust you anymore. Not after what you did." The words hung in the air, the weight of them sinking in. Jim seemed to shrink under the weight of his own regret, his shoulders slumping as if the truth was too heavy to bear. "I know, man. I messed up," Jim said, his voice full of pain. "But I've been trying to fix it. I want to make things right." Cameron stood up, his frustration bubbling over. "Making things right takes more than words, Jim. It takes actions. It takes owning up to what you did. And right now, all I see is someone trying to make excuses." Jim stood up as well, walking over to where Cameron stood. "I don't expect you to forgive me right now. I don't even know if I deserve it. But I just want you to know that I'll always have your back, no matter what happens." Cameron stared at Jim for a long moment, the anger in his chest slowly cooling. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing: this wasn't the end of their story. Whether they remained friends or not, Cameron wasn't ready to let the betrayal define him. He had too much to live for, too much to lose. But that didn't mean he was going to let Jim off easy. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again, Jim," Cameron said finally, his voice softer now, but still filled with emotion. "But I can't keep doing this. I need space. I need time." Jim nodded, his face a mask of sorrow. "I get it, man. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." And with that, Cameron left, stepping out of Jim's house and into the cold night. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew this: the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The friendship he had once valued was gone, but he couldn't let it define who he was. There were bigger battles ahead, and Cameron was ready to face them. The truth had come out, but it was only the beginning of a much deeper story. And for the first time in a long time, Cameron felt ready to move on. The days after the confrontation with Jim Jones were filled with uncertainty and reflection for Cameron. He felt like he was walking through a fog, his mind constantly circling back to the same questions. How could Jim have betrayed him like this? How could someone he had considered family, someone who had been a part of his life for so long, have done something so hurtful? The trust they had built over the years had been shattered, and now Cameron was left to pick up the pieces. The public fallout had been just as intense as the personal one. As expected, the story of Cameron exposing Jim Jones' affair with his ex-girlfriend had spread like wildfire. Fans, media outlets, and industry insiders were all talking about it. Some sided with Cameron, expressing their shock and disbelief over Jim's actions, while others were quick to defend Jim, claiming that there had to be more to the story. But for Cam'ron, the opinions of others didn't matter. It wasn't about the public reaction anymore. It was about him. It was about the betrayal that had rocked him to his core and the uncertainty of where to go from here. Spent the next few days keeping to himself, distancing himself from anyone who might have an opinion on the situation. His phone was flooded with messages, but he barely looked at them. He needed time to process, time to figure out what came next. The bond he had shared with Jim felt like it was slipping through his fingers, and he couldn't grasp how to hold on to it. No matter how much he thought about it, there was one thing that remained clear: things would never be the same. It wasn't until a week later that Cam'ron found himself back in the studio, trying to focus on his music, hoping that it would serve as some kind of distraction from everything that had happened. The beats, the rhymes, the energy. It was all supposed to help him get away from the mess of his personal life. But the truth was, he couldn't escape it. The music wasn't helping. The distractions weren't working. Everywhere he turned, he was reminded of the betrayal, of Jim's face, of the words they'd exchanged, of the emptiness that now filled the space where their friendship had once been. As he sat there, headphones on, trying to focus on the track in front of him, his mind kept drifting back to Jim. He had never imagined things would come to this. Jim had been more than just a friend. He had been his partner, his confidant, his brother. They had fought together, celebrated together, and built empires together. Now that empire was crumbling, and Cam'ron didn't know if it could ever be rebuilt. The studio door creaked open, interrupting his thoughts. He looked up to see his longtime manager and friend, someone who had been with him through thick and thin, standing in the doorway. "Yo, Cam," he said softly, walking in. "You good?" Cam'ron shrugged, his eyes never leaving the screen in front of him. "I'm fine," he muttered, though the words felt hollow even as they left his mouth. His manager walked over and took a seat next to him. "You sure? I've been trying to reach you. You've been ghosting everyone, man." Cam'ron didn't respond right away. He didn't know how to explain what he was feeling. How could he? No one really understood what it felt like to have someone you trusted so completely betray you. "I just need some time, man," Cam'ron finally said. "I need to figure this out on my own." His manager nodded, sensing the weight in his voice. "I'd get it, but you've got to talk to someone. You can't just bottle all this up, Cam. It's not healthy. You've got to face it." "I'm facing it," Cam'ron shot back, though his voice lacked the usual conviction. "I'm just not ready to deal with it yet." The conversation was interrupted by the buzzing of Cam'ron's phone on the table. He picked it up, glancing at the screen. It was a message from over the screen as he crafted his own response to the public. This wasn't just about setting the record straight. This was about taking control of his story, about showing the world the truth, no matter how painful it was to relive. As he finished typing, he stared at the screen for a moment, letting the weight of the words sink in. He was ready. He had to be. The world needed to hear his side. Cam'ron pressed send, and the post went live. "Jim Jones has betrayed me. This isn't just about the affair. It's about the lies. It's about the disrespect. I gave everything to this friendship, and now I'm left picking up the pieces." The message was out there. Now the world would know the truth. It was Cam'ron's truth, and he wasn't backing down. He knew the road ahead would be filled with more conflict, more pain, and more difficult decisions. But for the first time in days, he felt a sense of relief. The truth had been set free, and now he could finally begin to move forward, no matter what that meant. The world was watching, and Cam'ron was ready to face whatever came next. The shocking betrayal between Cam'ron and Jim Jones has sent shockwaves through the streets of Harlem and beyond. The aftermath of this scandal has revealed the ugly truth behind their friendship, and the question remains, can it ever be repaired? With Cam'ron now sharing his side of the story, the world is left to wonder how Jim Jones will respond. Is this the end of their decades-long bond, or is there a chance for reconciliation? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain, the drama is far from over. Now we want to hear from you. What do you think about Cameron's explosive reveal? Can Jim Jones redeem himself after such a deep betrayal? Do you believe Cameron can ever trust him again? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if you think Cameron deserves better. Subscribe for more updates on this ongoing drama, and make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an exclusive update on this saga. The story is unfolding, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Stay tuned, and let's continue the conversation.